Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episodes of Take Two. Obviously, there were 2 episodes this week, so I'm going to break the episodes down one by one. So first of all, I'll talk about the first episode. I really like kind of almost like spooky nature of this episode because it is an alien episode. They're in the small town of Stillwater, and I love the fact is that from the beginning, Sam knew about it, but at first she kept being like super vague about the details. I was like, does she not know everything? Is she just trying to give Cooper the benefit of that? I was like, no, she heard all the details before. She just didn't want to say anything because she knew Eddie might say no about the case. But the case is very interesting because Stillwater, there's a lot of things that happened. There's a lot of people that went missing. In particular, Cooper's mom, Kay. There's other dude named Arlo. There's this dude named Chuck who was taken, which I was kind of crazy. Chuck just rolled up on him with a gun, being like, "Yo, get off my property." It's kind of. It kind of goes back to being like, that kind of makes sense. And even Sam talks about it. It's like, that's probably why, like, things didn't work out between Kay and Chuck. Seems like Chuck's kind of a dick. He's not the only one, because the sheriff's kind of a dick, too, because he's like, oh, yeah, I don't want you investigating. I don't want y'all kind of turning this town upside down, essentially. He's like, I don't want, y'all come here to make this town be ridiculed again and stuff like that. I really like that. Initially, the only people who were really on this whole, like, aliens thing is Sam and Monica. They're super into it. Berto and Eddie are the most reluctant. I really like the fact is that Eddie, as the episode kind of went on, he got like, he's like, no, it couldn't be. But then he saw an alien and it kind of freaked him out, but he didn't tell anyone about it. He was secretly asking Monica to get some descriptions to find out. And so the fact is he didn't know what he saw, and that's what kind of bothered him. Because he had been so content on it being like, no, there's no such things as alien. It's kind of interesting. Literally, the only one who had that mindset all the way throughout the episode is Berto. It's just kind of like, no matter what happens, like, yeah, there's no such thing as aliens. It's like, oh, really? And it's like all these other accounts, all these people getting healed up and stuff. Because, like, Kay was returned. She could walk again. And I love that. Because obviously you could tell that there was a lot more to this. But it was like, okay, figuring out what it was all about. It seems like basically the dude who runs the nearby winery that's kind of famous in Stillwater. Interestingly enough, it's kind of interesting. I was expecting to see him in an episode a lot more because he was kind of talking about helping out in the investigation however he could, essentially. But he never did. So I guess that was just kind of his way of just keeping an eye on them, essentially. Like he's like, oh, I'll help if I can. But interesting enough, that's the actor who plays Kevin's dad on Riverdale, the sheriff of Riverdale. So it's just kind of interesting. That was kind of pretty neat. But Sam and Eddie getting kidnapped and it being like this crazy thing, then the dead birds at that point in time was like what really kind of cemented in my head as like, it's something hurting people and they're covering it up with alien stuff, which turned out to be the case to like cure them. I figured like the dead birds is what kind of gave that away from me, because it's like something nearby is toxic and it's killing the birds. But it's like, oh yeah, the giant holes. But it turns out that was about the barrels, because essentially he was using pesticides essentially to kill stuff that was eating his vines, but he didn't tell anybody about it. And the people that were working there, hence like Kay, Arlo, and Chuck, they were all people that were getting sick. And rather than coming clean about everything, he covered it up. Like this whole adventure of like using alien costumes as well as drones with lights and stuff were all for the purposes of making them all think it was kind of alien. So it's kind of like, oh, it shows you how much of a shitty person you are, because he knew that they could potentially sue and it would ruin him. So rather than, because he could have easily just admitted from the beginning that, oh, like, I know what's happening to these people. Because like in Kay's situation, she thought she had MS, which is kind of like, it's, you kind of ruined her life for like the past 2 years, and things have gotten worse, and she could have gotten treatment sooner. Hence, like, why they were all able to get better, because he knew exactly he got a doctor because he knew exactly what to counteract what was happening in him with, because he knew it was a side effect from the pesticides he had used. Part of me had wondered about the whole situation with the sheriff. Like, why was he being such a dick? I was like, does he have something to do with this? No, it turns out it's because Stillwater is kind of a special place, and he himself was kind of hoping it was aliens. That's why he was trying to fight them so hard, because he didn't want them kind of mess. Because it's like, oh yeah, this is the thing Stillwater's known for. But for him, it's like, oh, this town's still special in its own regard. So I was like, okay, it's interesting reason to be a dick. I didn't expect that to be your reasoning behind it. Like, I figured it was also just kind of like, oh, don't step in our toes, like, this is our jurisdiction. But, like, the way they were just super reluctant to kind of really jump on anything, like, that's what kind of made me go, wait, what? So, I don't know. But I think kind of going back to that point, it's kind of like, well, if he figured he was hoping it was aliens, and he knew that if Eddie and Sam kept snooping around, it might get found out that it wasn't aliens, like it was, like it turned out to be. So it still does leave the question about the 72 case, because that dude was sick. He had cancer, and then just like he got taken and he got cured. So this whole situation was just used the 72 incident to kind of spread that story around even more present day. But it's like, we still don't know what happened to the dude in 72. Could have really been aliens. But I do like the fact is that Monica is the only one that's pushing it. It's like, oh, when Sam and Eddie got kidnapped, oh, so we were abducted. It's like, no, we weren't abducted. And Bert's like, see, they weren't abducted. Yes, they were, Monica saying, she's being so steadfast in it. I guess part of me thought she would be the more likely not to be into aliens and stuff like that. Like Birdo's character, I would have expected that to be Monica, just because she's like the very logical person that she is. So I just would have assumed, which, I'm not going to fault her for someone about the alien thing, because it's like, it's not the whole aspect of like, oh, like there isn't more life out there. It's just the fact is that they just happen to come to this particular town and stuff like that. That there's some other logical explanation to it, essentially. So, but I really do like the bit back and forth between her and Berto about the whole situation. Her pretending to Berto like, oh, she can read minds and everything. She's like, no, it's just because I'm studying psychology, so I understand people's behavior. So I always kind of know what you're thinking. She's like, we should play poker sometime. I guess it's that way to be like, oh yeah, I guess because he kind of has a terrible poker face if she can read him so easily. And he's kind of like, oh, and she's like, not strip poker. And he's like, what? It's like, you kind of saw through me, didn't you? It's like, she's very good. But maybe that's just because Berto's very easy to read. Like, it's kind of easy to see what's in his mind. So I thought that was kind of overall just kind of a fun episode. I did like that it, like I said, almost had that spooky element to it. You figured it wouldn't be aliens, but I still thought it was kind of a nice, episode in that regard, nonetheless, And now moving on to the second episode of Take Two this week. It deals with Chris, in particular with her brother, Tyler. I do like that it's kind of being a Chris-centric episode, because it seems like her brother's kind of been constant screw up, kind of getting caught up in a lot of criminal stuff, and she's always kind of bailed him out time and time again, which is interesting because in the same episode we learn a little bit more about Sam. We learned that she kind of has a similar dynamic, except she's kind of the black sheep of her family. She ended up pointing out the fact is, amongst her family, she's literally the only one that doesn't have a PhD, because her sister's journalist. I like a journalist. Yeah. I don't know why, for whatever reason in my head that sounded weird every time I said it. Nevertheless, I like her explaining like the long list of things she did. Like one was like, oh, when she was sober, she sent a stripper, singing strippergram to her sister during her journalism dissertation, and then when she was drunk, to make her sister less nervous, she sent her a live monkey. So that was interesting. That in that case ended up being her super drunk at the time. So. But it's kind of a nice element of the episode, of the whole thing of like, how long do you give a person a chance until you just finally kind of let them go because they keep dragging you down. It did bring up an interesting conversation, because it's like, because it's like, oh, how do you know Tyler? It's like, oh yeah, I've known him, for 9 years. Got to know him a little bit more when me and Chris were dating. It's like, oh, so you were dating? He's like, only for a few months. Then we decided to be friends. He's like, oh, friends with benefits? He's like, well, to be fair, kind of was basically saying, well, yeah, but that basically saying that situation isn't happening anymore. And you see the look on Sam's face, like, oh, like she didn't know, almost figured it out. So it's little subtle things here and there, kind of adding more and more towards the kind of Sam and Eddie thing potential. But she knew there was a thing between them, but she didn't realize like, oh, that's not happening anymore. So that was kind of a nice, so you're not, so that means there's nobody in your life, right? So that's just immediately, because you can't just help but notice her reaction to finding out the information. Like they make a point to kind of point that out. So I thought it was kind of pretty neat. It's interesting because, like, it's obviously there's the bad blood between Chris and Tyler, because Chris is like, this doesn't look good. Turns out you stole a car. This all stemmed from like a car he stole, and it turns out drugs were inside the car. He didn't know. One of his friends who kind of set the whole deal up ended up dying because of it, along with two people that worked with him. And it's just kind of like, now like these gang is after him because they think he stole the drugs, which he didn't. But there's a part of Chris that was kind of thinking maybe he did, and for him it's like, oh, you want you'd like it if I was dead, huh? It'd make things easier for you, wouldn't it? And then just Chris just kind of looks so pissed off and just storms away because it's like, how can you be so idiotic to think that things would be easier if I wanted you to, if you were dead? It's like, you're my brother. I love you, you idiot type of thing. I thought it was kind of nice because Eddie goes to talk to Tyler and Sam goes to talk to Chris, because obviously for her she kind of feels like it's kind of like, is there any hope? But for Sam it's like, the fact of the matter is, if there's hope between me and my sister, there's definitely hope for you and Tyler. Just give it time. Like, he's trying, at the very least. It's interesting too because Berto and Tyler kind of bond too, because Tyler is like impressed by the fact it's because Berto is like, yeah, like he got joined up in the gangs and stuff like that, which we learned a little bit this episode, is because they found out he was a tech dude, and it's like they used him to break into stuff like that. So he kind of got mixed up in that world. And Tyler's like, yeah, he's just tired of this life and just tired of his sister always bailing him out, which Berto was kind of like, it's not too late. Obviously he didn't say it, but he's kind of implying with his own situation, because he is where he is now despite his situation, because we know his upbringing wasn't easy, not even with just the gang stuff, just his personal family life thing situation was what it was. So he's in a good position now, and it's just kind of like, yeah, it's never too late to kind of turn things around. So I thought, Berto's kind of a great example of that. So I was almost heartbroken later on. Well, it's kind of interesting because at first, like, there was a whole thing between Chris and Nico. I was like, no, don't try and do this bad thing, Chris. Of like, I'll get you some drugs and in compensation for what was stolen from you, and in that case, you'll let my brother go. But Nico was like, no, I'm not willing to let that go. The fact of the matter is, what's done is done. Like, I got to make an example. That's what I was like, oh man. But I was like, oh, so it's good because this way Chris didn't go down the route. But it's like, oh, it's still kind of bad she went to offer. Turns out it's all part of the plan. But the moment Tyler answered the phone, he's like, yeah, I got the drugs. I'm like, oh, you did steal them. I was like, you bastard. And I was like, wait a minute, is this part of a plan or is this? I was like, I was unsure. I was like, it's there. I was in the shop the entire time. Is that what? I was like, wait. I was like, I wasn't sure. It should have clicked in that, like, no, at what point in time we have known, because that's the thing. If Damien knew where the drugs were, why wouldn't he? Sometimes say, why wouldn't he say anything? But also at the same time, it's like, at what point in time would he have been able to stash those drugs there without Damien and the others knowing? So that's where it should have clicked in my head. But it's like, that's so good, because I was so scared for a moment. It's also major props on Jay for not turning Chris in about the whole situation. I love, really quickly, I gotta go back to it. It's like when they were investigating it, because like Eddie's like, yeah, I can't let Chris come here just because, well, for one, I won't let this whole situation cost her her job, because she's kept a lot of stuff, and if that comes out that she kind of hid information about holding on to a lot of this information, then she could lose her job for it. But also, he didn't know what situation would come upon. And Sam's like, oh, so you're trying to protect her? She's like, what about me? And he's like, when have you ever listened to me? So if I added it, she told you to stay behind, would you have actually done it? And she just kind of looks at him like, because she knows she wouldn't have. I thought that was kind of pretty neat. But getting back to it, Jay, like, kind of giving her a hard time at first, but she's like, just give me time. Like, what if it was your family in this situation? And I think, because we personally know Jay's family, his brother in particular, was kind of in a similar situation, because that's what kind of made the whole bad blood between him and Eddie, was kind of like his brother kind of being a dirty cop. So I think that situation kind of being in this situation of like looking out for your sibling, he can understand. So he kind of gave her the time. But I was like, oh man, don't tell me you are a piece of crap, because I'm about to go down on a tire. It's the TV show Lucifer. There was a thing, Ella and her brother, that episode, if you know what I'm talking about, it kind of had a similar thing. I thought it was going to end like that, where it turns out he's a little, it's like, no, things are good. Her brother's good. And he's actually turning things around, and he's actually going to testify against Nico and everything. Because it turns out the reason why Nico was pushing so hard for this situation, because he had already had a problem with the gang anyway, because of him killing Damien and his guys. Like, they kind of caused some bad blood amongst them. So they're more concerned about Nico doing what he did rather than like getting so caught up in like Tyler in the drug situation, so. But for Tyler, it's all about getting a fresh start. He wants to kind of do something good, which is like a fresh start for both him and his sis. So it's kind of good to see that things are good between them. It's kind of interesting because when I thought Tyler had actually stolen drugs, I was like, man, that means everything they did was all for nothing. Because at first it's kind of like, okay, did Perry Hansen steal the drugs? Is he trying to make up the fact that because he's running low on money and stuff like that? And then it turns out, oh, did his son steal the drugs because he's got this whole gambling debt thing going on? It's like, because at first it seems like the gambling debt is Perry's, but then it turns out to be Caleb's. But then it's like, no, Caleb didn't steal the drugs. Perry did, because he was trying to sell the drugs to pay off his son's debt. That's kind of why he's in the financial situation that he's in right now. It's because he's paying off his son's debt. Because the whole black eye thing, part of me was wondering, like, is he an abusive dad or something? Is that where we want to go down there? And it's like, no, because of the whole gambling debt thing, so. And I thought it was kind of pretty neat, because Sam was like, we can't sacrifice one person's life to save another's, you know, even in this case. So it's kind of like, hey, like, let's try and find a way around this. So they visit Mel, which the actress who plays Mel, she's been in so many different things. Like, one thing I know her from, she played the engineer in season 1 of Travelers, but she's also popped up in other stuff too, and I'm blanking on her right now, but I've definitely seen her in other things. So, but we definitely haven't seen the end of Mel, because Eddie owes her a favor, and that's why I was kind of like, oh, please don't let this have been for nothing. So it wasn't for nothing, but the fact of the matter is, you know, that's going to come back in some shape or form, and Eddie's probably going to have to cross some line he might not want to. You know, Mel being the loan shark that she is, so that's definitely going to be interesting how that turns out in the grand scheme of all this. But for now, that's just kind of in the background, but that might come up sooner than we think, at the very least. Because part of me was wondering, because I saw the D on I was like, on Tyler's phone, I was like, you don't think this has anything to do with Deacon? He's kind of criminal dude that he is, but it's like, no, it was D for Damien, so. But nonetheless, we do see that things are good between Sam and her sister Allison. I mean, at very least, they're taking steps towards things being good. You know, they're going to have a sit down and, you know, like I said, because Sam's trying to make amends. She's got a long list, but still, you know, always that first step is very important. So I thought that's kind of pretty neat. And once again, at the very end, he's like, can I give you a job? She's like, home? He's like, oh, yeah, that too. And they're just smiling at everything. I'm like, you're pushing it closer and closer. So, like I said, overall, pretty neat episode with everything that it was kind of entailed. Like I said, the whole Chris side of things, but also like furthering that whole Eddie and Sam thing. So I thought that was pretty neat. Very excited to see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.